Hey all, welcome back to the library. My name is Jason Dvorak, and we have come full circle. To say the game industry is having a moment would be a giant understatement. As society plunges itself into a self-made economic depression, stacked on top of hilariously poor financial decisions, my beloved hobby is coming apart at the seams. Nintendo's current management is doing everything in their power to destroy their communities. Microsoft's management, which was up to 14 layers in game development, has effectively destroyed their brand and legacy. Sony has decided to be the first console manufacturer to flat out say physical game media is going away, following Steam's longtime lead. It's this last one, of all the things going wrong in the world, that seems to have set off a firestorm in my favorite hobby and industry. People from every corner of every possible background have come out guns blazing and pitchforks raised, defending whatever side they believe in and crying foul if you dare think otherwise. And that's what's brought us here to this video. Thinking. No aura farming, no button smashing, and certainly not drama clickbait horseshit. In thinking about things for the last 3 weeks, the salvation we so desperately need can be found by just changing your perspective. So let's change and save the industry and hobby. For this idea to work, it requires swift changes to the industry. Harsh, painful changes that a whole lot of people aren't going to like. But if we're going to keep doing what we love thanks to developers who love what they do, we need to start at the top. First and foremost, we need to kick stockholders out of the industry. Look, you're a stockholder, I'm a stockholder. But the last decade has shown that those with the most access to them are nothing but children in a dysfunctional playground. From GameStop's meme coin incident to constantly hearing, the stock is down, used as a weird victorious flex by people already rooting against whoever the home team was, enough is enough. This belief is long rooted in me from a particular instance. Once, when I was still working with EB Games, EA delayed Battlefield Hardline past its forecasted profit window. It was delayed by like 4 or 5 months. Knowing we now didn't have the few millions in sales from the only real big seller at the time, a superior of mine commented, "Well, we have to make the stockholders happy, figure it out." I realized if said folks couldn't understand a game delay, they didn't deserve to be controlling my life. Removing the stocks angle also prevents egotistical rich people from buying their way into your favorite companies. For example, Ryan Cohen wouldn't have his 10% hold on eBay if they weren't a public company. The second step, and this is a bit more important, is that without stockholders, we can knock CEOs down a peg or two. No need for stock options or cutting people loose because you need to make the books look good for the investors. How many times in the last 30 years have you watched or read something a CEO has said and you were flabbergasted at how idiotic it sounded? Usually because they were trying to walk a tightrope between rabid fans and demanding stockholders. By keeping the CEOs focused on the actual employees and company, rather than being a lapdog to their stock portfolio, we might actually get somewhere more positive in this industry. CEOs also wouldn't be able to deflect blame to outside sources. The buck stops with them. Which is a good thing because we could finally hold them responsible for the failures that started with them. I can guarantee you that many of the thousands of unemployed developers weren't the ones who made the decisions that brought them to the unemployment line. With that out of the way, we can begin laying the foundation for the answer to all of our problems. With AI becoming bigger and bigger bubble waiting to burst and take us all down like it was the 2008 crisis again, we need to take a long, hard look at the upcoming consoles. For the first time I can remember, console prices are going up on existing hardware. And there are also rumors that it's just going to start at $1,000 to build the PlayStation 6. Not sell it, build it. The gaming world doesn't need another 3DO, which I might add, adjusted for inflation, would now be the equivalent of $1,500 at launch in today's money. $1,500. No. The problem comes from AI's demand for the newest and fastest hard drives, graphics cards, and RAM shortages. Data centers are taking on shipments and entire manufacturing lines once intended for consumers, with years worth of products being tied up in these buildings no one asked for. The normal person can't afford to upgrade their PC or upgrade their gaming console, or worse, literally recent technology. And that's when it hit me. You know what doesn't take a lot of RAM, needs no internal memory, and wields a fully usable graphics chip? Hear me out. Gaming is a funny, cyclical beast, a sentiment that Nintendo knows all too well. If you've never noticed it, many of Nintendo's greatest achievements were born from their greatest failures. The 3DS, the rightful winner to the Virtual Boy's mistakes. The Switch succeeded where the Wii U was a horrible failure. So what if we take that logic and turn it on its head? One of the great failures of the PlayStation 1, and Dreamcast for that matter, was how easy it was to pirate games to recordable media. With day one gray boxes, all you needed was a spring to play imports and backup discs. It's here in the concept of the CDR that we start rebuilding the gaming industry. Imagine if we have a PlayStation 1 level game system with a CDR or DVD burner as the physical media drive. Rather than publishers having to print physical media and lose precious overhead, they published to the new retro PlayStation's digital storefront, which we'll dub PlayStation Zero. Players can download the latest and greatest Zero games to the free packed-in 64GB SD card, which will hold at least 90 PS1 sized games. Just ask the Superstation. So where does the burner come into play? Thanks to new anti-piracy measures with individual disk signatures, system signatures, and on-disk technology, remember the warble? Physical media lovers can buy Sony's self-manufactured blank media and burn their digital purchases to the CDRs, just like how Good Old Games allows you to do with their PC game installers. This simple use of the CDR allows for 3 incredible paths to open up, each with their own branching positive outcomes. Walking down the first path is that the physical versus digital fight no longer applies. Everyone starts digital. Those of us who need to have something on the shelf can pick up a pack of official Sony CDRs and burn our downloads to them. This comes with an interesting preservation angle as well. If a game got patched, you can then burn the new version of the game as well. For the first time in history, archivists like myself would finally have a complete physical history of a game's evolution in real time, with all the patch notes. Since Sony only needs to print a single version of the discs, case, and inserts, there's infinitely less costly printing mistakes that can happen. No more wrong game on another game's disc. Sorry, I am error. No accidentally printing artwork upside down or even suffering through color palette shifts. Media can be sold anywhere the hardware is, or to help dodge scalpers, you can set it up so it can only be ordered through the system store, meaning you need a Sony PSN ID to order them. A scalper workaround would be to have the store access your library and compare disk need to purchase games. If you limit the buyable amount to a ratio of games to blank disks, you could easily manage inventory. Only have one game installed? You can order a single 5 or 10 pack of discs. You have 5 games bought? Well, you can order up to 5 packs. With scalpers now dealt with, publishers now have a new way to interact with their consumer bases. Besides the blank media, Sony can now sell blank inserts for gamers to design and print their own disc labels and manuals. Or, those that don't have the creative angle, sites that already make replica cases and manuals can now go all out and create their own unified libraries of artwork. Can you imagine having the Game-Rave edition of all your games? The older game Two Worlds provides a great launchpad for this angle with one of the coolest pack-ins ever, a fan kit. The disc included art assets and more that help fans create their own websites and blogs surrounding the game. Publishers could now provide the same style of kits, screenshots, and text assets for the true diehards to build their ultimate physical copy of the game. The move sets off a chain of creativity, and sites like Etsy, Fiverr, and more see graphic designers and hobbyists all over the world begin their own line of inserts and disc labels. But, more importantly, every time a console burns a disc, that data is sent back to the developers along with all the usual other data they collect in-game nowadays. If they see that a large number of purchasers are backing up their games, it acts in the same way a pre-order would. It allows them to see that it would be worth doing a single print run or more once the final version of the game is ready to be released, and only after the final patch is released. Moving towards the second path of opportunity brings us to the physical act of storage. I did mention that our hypothetical Zero comes with a 64GB memory card, but Sony was smart to include ports on the bottom of the system for SSD, NVMe drives, as well as USB ports or two on the back for external hard drives. Since the games don't take up that much storage and data read speeds don't need to crunch through gigabytes of data, consumers can repurpose old hard drives around the house. Secondhand sales on eBay and the like would see a dramatic drop in e-waste as older physical drives can now be brought back into play, particularly drives for the smaller variety. When was the last time you used an 80 gig hard drive in the modern day? For perspective, you can spec the entire US PlayStation library with code variants and some imports onto a single 1 terabyte drive and still have room to spare. Most consumers aren't collecting full libraries, so old stock of 80 gig, 120 gig, and 250 gig drives would do just fine for the system's entire run. And if you run out of space, burn your game to a disk and backup and delete it from the storage device. It's that easy. Imagine how cool it would be to see homebrew designers make special mounts for the larger USB drives. You could 3D print bases that the Zero sits on, and while your drives hide underneath, maybe even with a simple fan plugged in for ventilation. It would be like the PlayStation version of the Sega CD, or the Superstation. So now that we've taken care of physical and digital folks, storage is easily accessible, and first-party production costs have been brought down to a minimum overhead with a single media and hardware to build, we can get to the most important third path this idea opens up: the revenge tour for developers. The last 2 years have been brutal for the gaming industry and tech industry at large. Tens of thousands of layoffs, coupled with wholesale studio closures, are sinking the hobby from the foundation upward. However, while today's triple and quadruple A games need hundreds and hundreds of people working on a single title, older games from the PlayStation day, as long as they're not Final Fantasy VII, don't really need that many people. Typical PS1 games only needed 10, 20 or so people, with a little bit more meat on the roll call if there was a lot of CG footage to be made. What better way to get all of these out-of-work devs back into the game, literally, than smaller, bite-sized development houses that thrived before larger entities swallowed them whole and spit them back out? Now, remember how we don't have stockholders anymore? Kickstarters could be used to fund the smallest of projects, and as they sell through releases, they can start rebuilding and resaving all new larger teams for the Zero and eventually other systems. If they build their games to work across the Zero and Steam, and say the next PlayStation system at the same time, they can double up the available profit. Imagine PS1 style hardware in the hands of Double Fine or ZeniMax. All the crazy in-software tricks they could come up with to break the hardware wide open. If you don't pay attention to the homebrew scene, fans are starting to do some insanely incredible things now that they have access to modern programming techniques. The Sega Genesis is seeing stunning Neo Geo conversions, and the 3DO saw the return of Mortal Kombat 2 thanks to practically one person who added their own little touches to it. It was hilarious. I mean, for God's sakes, we've got Doom running on the 2600 and the Neo Geo now. The approach would bring back one of the most desperately missing angles of game development: elbow grease. Back in the day, developers would have had to think outside the box literally, to solve how to run a game properly on the chosen hardware. Whether it was Naughty Dog deleting parts of the PlayStation BIOS file to squeeze in more memory, or Capcom redoing all of Alpha 3 special effects in 3D to eke in more animation frames, that type of magic seems largely gone in the modern world. Now it's just releasing slightly improved hardware for minimal gains. It wouldn't even need to be just the real developers making their saving throw on the simpler hardware. The PlayStation Zero concept would be the perfect re-entry point into the NetYaroze program. Since the little guy can already burn discs, hobbyists looking to do something cool could once again join the like-minded people in a unified development community. However, unlike the first time around, the regions wouldn't, I keep saying regions, the regions wouldn't be separated. Japanese, European, and American designers could all share their findings and programming tricks. A new generation of shareware and middleware could be created for the modern expansion of the Yaroze program. But there might be one more curious route. There are enough people out of gaming jobs to create an entirely new, separate industry from the ground up. And if Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony don't want to meet consumers halfway, I know of at least 2 hardware makers that could start the alternate universe. The first would be Playmagy and the Polymega, and Blaze with the Evercade. Both companies have been publishing their own game sets for a while now, and if you count the games rather than the compilations, they're already reaching library sizes close to the Neo Geo CD and smaller previous systems. No law says publishers can't move their product to these smaller entities, and it's been proven that they can run PlayStation 1 games and lower. Imagine a new alternate grassroots industry run out of spite. All these Battlefield devs let go right before EA's CEO was rewarded for it. They could start fresh with the Zero, creating a retro equivalent to the Battlefield series. It would be like playing Medal of Honor for the first time all over again, but now with 30 more years of programming knowledge behind it. Picture young people actually getting to explore the evolution of graphics in real time again. Imagine all the new and inventive programming tricks we left behind to higher RAM counts and processor cores. There was a beauty to having less power, and we need to go back. Now, I know this thought process is a pipe dream, but there is merit. We as a community and user base have all the tools we need to move on from the modern day gaming industry. Whether it's making our own games, our own systems, or both, it's becoming more and more apparent that we can leave all of this behind and just do it ourselves. Whether creating or preserving, we don't need the big dogs anymore. All right, guys. So tell me your thoughts on this idea, what works, what doesn't. If you could start the industry over from scratch, how would you do it? I'll see you in the comments section. Be safe. I'm here when you need me. Take care.